our concern for our financial wellness, not only in grad school, but beyond, is very important. And so we have our speaker here, David, who will be speaking to us on financial wellness.
Hello, David.
All right, hi everybody. I understand you had a long week. I hope that this will bring some new information to you and make you feel a little energized about personal finance and investing. My name is Dave Boothe. I am a wealth management advisor with TIAA. I started at UNLV in 2013, graduated in 2018. So while I have not done grad school, I went through undergraduate here, lived in that building about 2-minute walk that way, Tonopah North, for 4 years. And here I am today, where I am a financial advisor for professors, staff, administrators at UNLV, CSN, University of Reno. All right, so when it comes to personal finance, investing, how many of us have phones? Every single person here, right? You have a monthly payment for that phone. You buy clothes, you go to H&M, Dillard's, Target. I mean, I don't know where you shop, but you know where you go. Utilities, if you have rent or a mortgage and you have an electricity bill, water bill, so on and so forth, you're paying all these companies money. That's money that you're going to work for, your hard-earned money that you have to clock in and out for, or that you get a salary for. At the end of the day, these companies, none of them are non-profit, right? They're taking your money, they make profit from it, so on and so forth. What about you? Are you paying yourself every month or regularly to build your own wealth? So I'm going to use a car as an example. The average car payment in America, I don't know if y'all knew or not, but it's about $700. Now, that includes the high of the high, so there's some outliers there. If you look at the median car payment, it's closer to $500. That's $500 a month just for your car, right? Does not include gas, does not include insurance, does not include maintenance, so on and so forth. What if you went to a dealership and the car salesman, who is very friendly, who's, by the way, not your friend, told you that you can afford a $500 car payment after reviewing your finances, so on and so forth? What if instead you bought a $250 car? And so I have a link here just to kind of show. Okay, so here's cars.com, right? And anybody can do a quick search. Generally speaking, you want to do a used car. You can do a Honda, a Toyota, and you can get a car that costs you around $300 a month or less. One that's reliable and that will last you for over 5 years. And so I don't have a specific car in mind here. I'm just coming down here to show. You can take a look at the car payments here. You don't have to get a piece of junk, right? Get something that works. Yeah. But generally speaking, you can find something that will work for you and that'll last for 5+ years. So what if you took that $250 extra per month that you would have spent on a $500 car and you put it away? You invested it every single month into the S&P 500, a low-cost index fund. Would you have enough to go on vacation? Probably. Would you have enough to retire off of? Probably not. Enough to buy a new car in cash so that you don't have a car payment 5 years from now? Maybe. Enough for a down payment on a house? Also maybe. Do you have any guesses? $250 a month, 5 years. How much are you going to have at the end of 5 years?
What's your interest rate?
Interest rate, good question. Let's assume 9% interest rate. Any guesses? $5,000. Who said that? Thank you for the guess. Any other guesses? Okay, just one guess. So I've got a gift card for you. No, I'm kidding. Let me go back in. But thank you for participating. Let me go to the financial calculator. And I'm going to look on this screen here. Don't mind me. So if you have $0 today, I'm doing this interactively so y'all can see the results yourself. Payment is $250 a month. Now there's 12 months in a year, so that's $3,000 per year. I'm going to type in 3,000. Future value is what we're solving for. How much are we going to have after 5 years? Interest rate 9%. Now that interest rate, if you know what high yield savings accounts are offering right now, it's about 5%. The S&P 500 index fund has averaged about 10 to 11% over the last 50 years. I'm going to use 9% just to err on the side of caution. Assume that you make a little bit less than what's average or what has happened. 5 years. And it is over $17,000 that you have, almost 18 grand. Now, you have to pay taxes over time, right? The tax is going to be a very small portion of that. But that's $17,000 that you would not have otherwise at the end of 5 years. So like I said, enough to go on vacation, probably enough for a down payment on a home. Absolutely. These days you can get into a home with a 3.5% down payment, $400,000 house, 3.5% down, about 15 grand. Okay. Now this is just with 5 years of doing what I discussed, right? Cutting that car down, taking half that payment, investing it. Some of the best clients that I've had, now I've worked with doctors, I've worked with lawyers, I've worked with engineers, they're cool, they've got high incomes, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year. It's really easy for them to go and put money away, build wealth quickly. But some of the best clients that I've actually worked with have been cashiers, secretaries, people working customer service, assistants, janitors, chefs. It's people that have a plan, regardless of how much they make. Now, easier said than done, but having those good habits is what allows you to do what I just showed on the last screen, but not for 5 years, to do it for more like 40 years. And so same thing, I'm going to go to the financial calculator. I'm going to quickly put in my numbers here. We've got 0 today. That same $3,000. Okay, we're solving for the future value, same 9% rate of return. And we do it for 40 years. So you can imagine if you're 25 years old, that takes you to about 65 years old. The average retirement age in America is about 67 to 70 right now. And by the time you are reaching retirement, that is $1 million. There goes your millionaire right there, just by taking about half a car payment and doing this over 40 years. If you're thinking, well, let me pause here. Any questions so far? And don't be shy. I want this to be interactive. Okay. $1 million might not seem so impressive, but you've got to remember, this is just for sacrificing the car. What if you did the same thing with the car as well as rent, or your house, or half of your tax refund every year? You add it to the car savings. Or you also have an employer who gives you a match at a 401k at work. All of a sudden it's $1 million plus the 401k, plus your Roth IRA, plus your home, if you've managed to buy a home, and you're looking at a retirement of $3, $4, $5 million. Question?
I wonder, this is like saving or this is like investing that?
Excellent question. I promise I'll get to you in about 3 minutes. I've got a slide for you. Thank you. And her question, in case you didn't hear it, was, is this saving or is this investing?
How much does this go to tax? Is it like 20% or?
Excellent question. So that's a complex question. You're going to make money. How much of it goes to tax? There's a lot of different variables. It depends on the type of account you're investing in. Right? Are you doing a Roth IRA? If you are, 0 goes to tax. All $1 million is yours. Are you doing a taxable brokerage account? If you are, a lot of it goes to tax. You're not going to have $1 million at the end of that. Are you doing a 401k? Again, a lot of it's going to go to tax, but that's part of having a plan. Great question. Okay. So, what if I had just saved $250 for 40 years and not put it into the market? So that goes right to your question. Thank you for asking it again. And here we go. I'm going to go right back to the financial calculator. Matter of fact, I can just use... Okay, there we go. I can just use the last one. So 40 years. Instead of 9% rate of return, if you just put $250 into a checking account, you're going to get 0% rate of return. And after 40 years, you will have $120,000. there's a big difference between $120,000 and over $1 million, and that's due to the effect of compounding over time. Okay. Does that answer your question? So saving versus investing? Okay.
Next question is, where should we invest?
Excellent. I've got that for you as well. All right. Okay. So as I just mentioned, saving versus investing. Saving is, I mean, I'm not going to say it's easy because not every American does it, right? But you find a way to save, you will slowly build some sort of wealth, right? $120,000 over the course of 40 years. Definitely not enough to retire off of. But if you invest it, you can 10 times that amount. Okay, so what is investing? I'm going to start off by saying investing is not equal to gambling. If you take that $250 and go to the MGM, show me how much you have after 40 years. I bet it's closer to zero than to even the 120 grand on the other street. As you know, $250 a month into the S&P 500 will make you about $1 million after 40 years. So what is the S&P 500 index? I keep talking about it. Anybody have an idea of what it is? I've got hints on the screen here, but in your own words, any volunteers?
So it is an index that tracks the 500 most profitable corporations in this country. So like Apple, Microsoft, NVIDIA.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, that's exactly what it is. So when you buy a piece of the S&P 500, you are buying a piece of the 500 largest publicly traded companies here in this country. All companies, or mostly companies that you've probably heard of. Houston mentioned a couple. There might be even others that you see every day but don't realize that are a part of the S&P 500. For example, you drive on the freeway, you see construction, probably using Caterpillar equipment. United Rentals, Home Depot, right, so on and so forth. Okay. When you invest into the S&P 500, and this is a misconception, you know, people hear the word invest and get a little scared. It is actually impossible to lose your money. So you can't put money in and it goes down to zero. The only way it's going to zero is if you physically take that money out. Question?
It's a sort of credit letters. It compares to something like in Brazil we have a construction and building for a home that is an investment that is pretty safe and it's not taxed at all. So this is taxed. Is this that there is some level of tax over this investment?
Yeah, great question. So there is a level of tax for the investment, and it depends on what account you're investing into.
Okay.
So, you know, there's multiple types of different investment accounts, Roth IRAs, got normal brokerage accounts. That's going to determine how many taxes or how much taxes you pay.
This is a safe investment. So in terms of not a stock market, but you have some safety net if you want to withdraw the money.
I see what you're saying. Yes, so
frame for this.
yeah, so this is the stock market. The S&P 500 is
Okay.
the stock market, but it's the stock market as a whole.
Okay.
You're not picking one individual company,
Okay.
whereas if you do, that company could go bankrupt.
Yeah.
How many of us have heard of Circuit City? You remember that store? Radio Shack, Toys R Us, I can go on and on. But if you buy the S&P 500, I'm going to give you an example. So you put $100 into it. These days, about 3 of those $100 are going into Apple stock. About 2 of those $100 are going into Google, so on and so forth. It just gets split all the
The
way.
eggs in several baskets.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
In one swipe or one swoop.
Okay.
Okay, great question. And I've got a point down there that says 20 years. So that's a key point right there. There has never been a period of time in the history of the United States stock market where if you invested over 20 years, that you would have lost money. So think about that. We're in 2024 right now. From 2004 to now, you would have made money. Those tranches of 20 years hold true even back to the Great Depression. So not even the recession of 2008, Great Depression of 1929, 1930. You invest at that point, and by 1949, you've profited through the mess that was the Great Depression. Okay. Now, you mentioned, what was your name, sir? Andre?
Yeah.
Excellent. You mentioned, is this safe? If you invest over a course of 1 year, anything can happen. You could lose almost half your money. But if you're investing over the long term, I call the long term 5 years or longer, you're very likely to make money. Okay. So why do we invest? You all just saw on the other screen what savings versus investing looks like, 120 versus 1 million. Inflation is the second reason. I mean, have you seen the price of groceries, gas, tuition, for example? In 2023, it costed about $9,100 per year to go to school here at UNLV. 2024, this year, $9,300. This is for undergrads. So about $200 more, 1 year difference. Where do you think the price of tuition will be next year? I don't think it's going down. What about by the time your kids go to school? Right, so 15 years from now when your children are ready to go to school, if you've got children, 15, 20 years from now. So this is why we invest, to keep up with those rising costs of living. Question?
Yeah, can I just back on the topic Andre start?
Mm-hmm.
You explained for us like if we invest for short time, it's not a good form to invest money. But I think, I'm not sure, but I am an international student. I think most of the students here have the same situation.
Mm-hmm.
And how make this possible for us? Because our graduate school will be like, for some masters, 2 years, for some PhD, 4 years. And how to use that for us to save our money here, like how to be possible?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you really do have a short time frame, short horizon, and I call short less than 5 years, it may be better for you just to save and not to actually invest. As a matter of fact, I'm glad you bring that up. I'm going to go back to, you guys are going to get tired of seeing this calculator here in a bit. But if you remember, the first example I showed the $3,000 a year for 5 years, and you had 17 grand, right? $17,000. If I do that same example, so payments are 3,000. We're solving for future value. Rate of return, instead of 9%, I'm going to use 0. And we're saving for 5 years. So for 5 years of just savings, 15,000. So 15,000 versus 17,000. That's not such a big difference. The magic of compound happens over time, which is why the 40 years is so much bigger. So a great question. If you only need 2 years, 3, 4, 5 years of savings, you can go ahead and just save and not worry too much about investing. But at some point, you're going to want to retire. And so at some point, you are going to want to invest for that purpose.
The ways to invest, like, we don't know our future after 4 years in our PhD. We can start a new life here or in another country.
Mm-hmm.
And if we start to invest here, about the laws, the rules for that, it's possible for international students, it's possible to pick up this money after in other country if we back for our country or start a new life in other country. How is the laws for that? How to invest that and save to be safe, security to pick up this money back in anywhere, like anytime.
Yeah, phenomenal question. That's beyond my scope, but it's only because there's so many countries out there. All these different countries have different rules, and you can't just invest here and expect to be able to take that money out in another country with no implications, taxes or different rules that you might run into. So to find the answer to that question, it really depends on the specific country, and then you want to learn that country's policies or rules with international investments, if that makes sense.
But it's possible to find this type of information, SEP 500 index website or instructions for that, like to decide?
Yeah, so I would probably say something like, I mean, this is off the top of my head, I might be wrong here, but something like Investopedia might have an answer. Something like NerdWallet might have an answer. Those are popular blogs that are based on personal finance. So I recommend checking those out. And then once you do decide, hey, I'm going to settle here, whatever country that happens to be in, look into investing in that, or the investing rules in that country. That's what I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your questions. Okay, so really, why do we invest? I talked about it, college savings, financial independence, major purchase down the line. Maybe you've got children or causes that you care about and you want to leave money behind for that. But the real reason we invest is to have choices. Okay? Okay, so hopefully I've inspired you at least to invest a little bit. And if you are ready to invest, not so fast, I've got a couple of pointers here for you first. I call the money that you put away every month your quote-unquote PYF number, your pay yourself first number, before you start paying other bills. If you are, no matter if you're paycheck to paycheck or you've got a couple of extra dollars, I think everybody can start with at least $10 a month. So you take $10 a month, if you've got a checking account and a savings account, go ahead and put an automatic recurring distribution to your savings of $10 a month. If you can do more, great. And then what you do is you go to your calendar and put in for once every quarter, so every 3 months or so, to review that number. So you look at your budget. I'm doing $10 a month now. Can I afford to up that to 20? Can I afford to up it to 50? Whatever that looks like for you. Okay. I want everybody, before they start investing in any S&P 500, to have a starter buffer fund of about $1,000 of savings. So you should have $1,000 in savings, because if you have an emergency, if life happens, you don't want to be going right into your investments when they're going to be fluctuating up and down. You want to have a solid, stable, about $1,000 at least to help with unforeseen events. Okay. Also, before investing, I would pay off bad debt. So if you've got credit cards and you hold a balance every month and you're paying interest, I would absolutely pay that off first. I'd say that quote unquote, good debt to have is going to be student loans and a mortgage. So you can invest before you pay those off, but everything else, you really want to pay that down. Quick tip on that, as far as the bad debt goes, anybody understand why I'm recommending paying off bad debt before investing? Any guesses?
Does it affect your credit differently than?
Good question. So there's no actual effect on your credit score, but if anybody has had a credit card or has a credit card now and you pay interest every month, you know that they charge, 22% interest rate on your credit card? 30, thank you. I've seen as high as 25 plus. That same 25, 30% that you're paying interest on, if you're only making 9% in the S&P 500, you're literally losing the difference. I'd rather you pay off the bad credit, save that money, and once that's done, then you invest.
So your credit card should probably only be used if you plan on paying it off every month.
Absolutely.
So it's not, I saw those $500 shoes. So it's not for that kind of thing.
I agree. And oftentimes, so I actually gave this presentation to a high school about a year ago, and they were asking about credit cards. That topic came up. And I tell them, hey, if you're just getting started and you don't trust yourself to not overspend on your credit card, put one bill on your credit card and nothing else. You're going to pay your phone bill anyway. You're going to pay for gas anyway. Only swipe your card for that. Everything else, use your debit card, so you actually have to spend it. And the point of doing that is you're still going to be able to build credit, but you're not going to go overboard and accidentally swipe it at the mall or somewhere you shouldn't.
I don't know, can works or can help, but my mom gave me the tip when I start with my credit card in my college. Like you have, for example, you have $100 in cash now. You just can use in your credit card $100.
Yeah.
Because you just can use if you have before. It's not the opposite, it's not the other way. And this has worked for me all those years, and I think it's a good way to start. And here, this is really important for us because we need to grow our score to start a new life here.
That's right.
To have more opportunities as life. We need to pay attention on that.
Absolutely, I love it. So only use your credit card if you've got the money ready to pay it off, right?
Yeah.
I love it. And yes, if you want to buy a house one day, or if you want to do things, these days even applying for jobs, some jobs check your credit score before they hire you. So I see a hand in the back.
also so you have the money to pay off the credit card, right?
Mhm.
Do you think, are you supposed to wait till the date is due, or can you do it right away?
Excellent question. Credit cards have two key dates. They've got the due date and they have the statement date. Actually, I should have said that in reverse. Statement date comes first. That's the day that they send you the balance that you have, and they tell you when the due date is. Okay, so you've got statement date, due date. I personally have my credit cards on auto pay for the day after the statement date. So I don't wait until, if they tell me that my payment is due on the 24th of this month, I'm paying it as soon as they tell me that it's due, whenever it's due, if that makes sense. Now, having a payment on the due date or statement date actually has no effect on your credit. That's just my personal way of making sure, hey, I've got it done. It's paid. Okay. Speaking of effect on your credit, paying interest on a credit card does not raise your credit score. So if you have a credit card, you're paying interest on it every month, that's just making Visa rich. That's just making US Bank rich, whoever you're banking with. Paying off your card in full, or paying off your card period, is what helps your score, whether it's in full or not. But paying it off in full stops you from getting interest charged. That only hurts you. It doesn't help you. A question?
A little bit off topic.
Sure.
But, so are you saying to invest into the S&P 500 because that's the safer option instead of investing into an individual stock, like for example, Apple? I mean, Apple is always going to go up. Amazon's, going to go up. It fluctuates sometimes, but like it's guaranteed that it's going to go up. So what are you suggesting?
So thank you for asking that question. I think that, I'm going to give this as a blanket rule for everybody. If you're interested in investing in individual stocks, I challenge you to wait until you've got at least $10,000 invested in the S&P 500, which has a whole other wide variety of prerequisites, right? No bad debt, $1,000 emergency fund. You've got all that in order before you start investing in stocks. Why? Because stocks, no matter how safe they may seem, they can go down. As safe as Amazon is, as safe as Apple is, there has been a period of time, I don't have the exact dates, but there's been about a 2-year period of time where Apple has been, flat and down. What if you need that money during that time, right? If you're investing for the long term, that's a different story, but I want you to be diversified before you start picking stocks. Also, again, as safe as Apple and Amazon seem, back in the year 2000, 1999, Cisco, the company Cisco, was considered, oh my gosh, that's the safest stock out there, right? Put my money in there. Let me can I get a time check? What time is it?
9:36.
I've got plenty of time, so I think it's worth doing this. Okay. I'm going to go to Yahoo Finance, and I'm going to show you what Cisco did. Right? Cisco still exists today, right? People still have. Okay, let's go Cisco. Okay, so this is Cisco. I'm going to open up an all chart for it. So this is if you took your hard-earned money and invested into Cisco 25 years ago. And it might have there we go. Let's wait. While I pull up Cisco, are there any other questions? Question?
Does TIAA offer target date funds? Can you speak to the importance of asset allocation?
Absolutely, and thank you for asking that. Let me do. Okay, so here goes your chart of Cisco, and if I open up a max chart of it, while it's thinking, I'll answer your question about the target date funds. So yes, TIAA, as well as many other companies, Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard, all offer target date funds. Target date funds are special funds that allow you to put money in today, and you pick a year that you'd like to retire by or that you think you might need those dollars, and the fund will automatically shift and have you take less risk as you approach the date of the fund. I'm going to pause on that. Take a look at Cisco, that all-time chart. So if you would have put, Cisco was considered to be a staple company back before the year 2000. iPhones didn't exist yet, right? This was the big tech. And if you would have put money into Cisco at the wrong time, you still wouldn't have your money back 25 years later. Okay? So when I say stocks are a little unpredictable, anything can happen. I'd rather you have a nice foundation before you invest in individual stocks. Okay? And then I will get to your question right after I finish the target date funds question. So as far as asset allocation goes, I believe that it is very important to have a good mix of stocks, bonds, real estate, so on and so forth, especially, or I should say particularly, as you get closer and closer to retirement. If you're just starting out in your career, I don't know how old all of you are, but if you're 20s, 30s, even 40s, I think you'll be okay just sticking with the S&P 500 because that time frame is over 20 years. And again, there's never been a period of time in 20 years where you've lost money in the S&P 500. But absolutely, as you get closer to retirement, you want to have bonds, you want to have real estate, things that aren't going to move so much when you actually need that money to pay the bills because you're no longer getting a paycheck. Great question. And then you had a question. Oh, you said options? So, okay, very interesting question, but very valid. So does anybody know what options are? Okay. You know what stocks are? Okay. So an option is the ability to buy or sell a particular amount of stocks, usually 100, at a certain time or date. If it sounds complex, it's because it is. For the most part, stay away from options. Options are going to be a high level of risk, similar to cryptocurrency. It's going to be up there, around there. Now, you can make a lot of money in options. You can also lose a lot of money in options and go to zero. Okay? So I, again, recommend having a solid foundation, starting with the S&P 500, have that as a foundation. And if you really want to dabble into options or cryptocurrency or different investment opportunities, do that with a small portion of your money. Don't put your retirement at risk. Is it what? Are options legal? Absolutely. You could, for yourself, yes. Can you do options for yourself? Is that your question? So you, student what? Oh, student visa. I'm actually not sure. So the process of trading options, you have to open an account with a brokerage firm, Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard, and apply to trade options at those firms. So really that's going to be under their decision or not, whether or not they'll accept. And from that point, you can begin trading options. S&P 500 is not futures. It's an index fund. What was that last part? I'm sorry? No, so yeah, you are not investing in futures at all by investing into the S&P 500. Is that your question? Yeah, no. So and futures are a completely separate, different investment. Yep. Investment type, investment class. I'm going to go back to here. Okay. Was there another question? I think I saw it. Yes.
Just as somebody who's never invested, if you were interested in investing in the S&P 500, would you need to reach out for help, like to an investor or something, or is it something the layman can do?
Excellent question. I think it's on the next slide.
Oh, awesome.
Okay. It's on the following slide, but I'll cover this first and I'll get to your question. Thank you for asking. So you want to take action. What can you do right now? I don't know all of your financial situations, right? If you all are paycheck to paycheck, start with $1. Take $1 and make it automatic. That's the key thing here. Go to your checking account, make it an automatic contribution to your savings account. If you've got a little bit more to spare, do 10, do 20, do 50, do something, but make it automatic. The reason why we make it automatic, right? If you're doing $1 a month, let a year go by, you've got $12, right? But what you have done is started a habit. So now you can go back to that $1 and make it $5 one day when you're ready. You can make it $10 one day when you're ready. Maybe you can sacrifice on the car and make it $250, like we talked about, when you're ready. And maybe one day you can make it $500 per month. Okay. Big tip number 3, I guess, be intentional about your large purchases. I don't know if you've ever heard of the quote, don't be penny wise and pound foolish. Yeah. Okay. Literally, I've got people that make the decision every day, should I skip this coffee and save this $5? There's something called decision fatigue. If you're doing that 365 times a year, right, you're probably going to get sick and tired of making decisions about saving and just give up. Whereas if you just make the decision to get the cheaper car, takes you point A to point B, now you've saved $250 a month with one decision. Okay? Same thing with your rent, same thing with mortgage, so on and so forth. And then take advantage of free money. So when you get a job after you finish school, get a job, does your employer offer a match on a 401k or a 403b or some sort of program that gets you ahead for retirement? Always take advantage of those. Okay, and then resources for you. So this goes to your question here. So invest, as far as investing goes, I always like to say Charles Schwab, Vanguard, and Fidelity. I actually used to work at Schwab. I'm at TIAA now. It doesn't really matter the firm that you go with. Go with an S&P 500 index fund. I've written the symbols on there for you, so if you'd like to take notes, if you go to Schwab, it's SWPPX. If you go to Vanguard, it's VFIAX. If you go to Fidelity, it's FXAIX. They're all the same thing. They all have very low expenses, and they all allow you to participate in investing in the S&P 500. Okay. Automatic savings, you can do that at your bank website. Usually most banks have features where you can set a recurring distribution going. Now, I recommended building up that savings account to $1,000. Once you've got that, then you go and you make an account at Schwab, Vanguard, Fidelity, and move that same $5, $10, $50 a month over to there to invest it. Okay, and then PYF priorities, or pay yourself first priorities. Just a reminder, in the order of operations, right? We all remember PIMDAS from school. Emergency fund of $1,000 first, pay off bad debt number 2, employer match. So if you have a 401k, some sort of retirement like that, take advantage of that, number 3. And then this fourth one is your choice. So Roth IRA, 529 if you have kids and you want to save for their college, and 1 to 3 months of living expenses as a cash reserve. That's a big one. And then the last place you should be putting money into, if you've got everything else covered, is a taxable brokerage account. Okay. To answer one of your questions earlier, that Roth IRA is how you invest and not have to pay tax on any of the gains. Okay. Certain restrictions for putting money into a Roth IRA, but as long as you're employed and not making over about 160 grand a year, if you're single, about 250. If you're married, you can contribute to a Roth IRA. All right, question.
Just wondering, I mean, for the international students who might not know where you're going to be, in 5 years, would it maybe make more sense to do the taxable brokerage account, just because if they set up an IRA and then they have to take that money out of the country with them, they have to pay that penalty. Right. Because the IRAs and 401ks are set up to be retirement funds, so if you withdraw where 59.5, there's I think like a 10% penalty.
Absolutely.
Up front, and then you pay taxes on it. So.
Yeah, very knowledgeable. Thank you for that question. So yes, if you again don't know exactly where you're going to be, I would put the biggest priorities on just saving, not even investing. So I wouldn't even rush to the taxable brokerage account at the end here. But if you've got that checklist done, you've got the 1 to 3 months living expenses saved, you've got the bad debt paid off, then yeah, taxable brokerage account is going to be the way to go, so that it's flexible. It can move with you. Any other questions? Great question, by the way. Okay, one more question here.
Yes, I was actually just informed our 10 o'clock is sick and can't make it, so feel free to take the time.
Continue, okay. So I'll be here another hour with you. No. Let me see, I think I've got some, so these are just some high-level tips here with personal finance in general. So as far as, y'all are all grad students, right? Get out there and network. We can talk about saving, we can talk about investing all we want, but if your income is low, it's going to be really hard to do that. So, if you've got a $30,000, if you've got a $20,000 income, it's going to be really difficult to build wealth. And so when I say get out there and network, I use LinkedIn, and I physically went into different places and introduced myself. My first, and I don't mind being transparent here, y'all can ask me any questions. My first job out of college was with a company called Ameriprise Financial. That was a great starter company for me to get what I needed. While I worked there, I would physically go to different financial advising firms in the Valley, walk in and ask to introduce myself to the manager, tell them, hey, not looking for a job right now, working on my development, so on and so forth, but I will be in the future. And that's what led me into Schwab. So Schwab is one of the higher tier companies, and when they were applying or when they were interviewing for a position, the manager actually reached out to me on LinkedIn because he remembered the impression that I left on him, and that's how I got that higher paying job that allowed me to save more. So don't underestimate the power of getting out there, introducing yourself, having your why ready to go for whatever your expertise is or whatever your field is. If you have the means to live with your parents longer or live with roommates longer before you go out and get your own place, absolutely do it. Shelter is the single largest expense that most people have. And so, if your rent is $2,200 a month, or you can make it, half that or nothing by living with your parents for an extra year. I don't know your situations with your parents or roommates, but it might be worth it to do it just to get ahead early. Okay, getting ahead early is almost like a life hack, and I'll show you all why in a bit. As a matter of fact, that's my next point here. Investing early can set you up for life. So, I have an example here. If you reach age 40, and these numbers I just kind of pulled out, right? It could be 30, 50 with a different amount of money. But if you reach age 40 and you've got $250,000 saved because you've saved up over 15, 20 years, I want to show you what that can do for you. All right, back to our favorite calculator. So you reached age 40, you saved up $250,000, and you decide, you know what? I'm done saving. I don't want to put a dime more away towards retirement. Okay, so no payments because you're not adding any to it. Rate of return, that same 9%. Period. So if you're 40, we're not investing for you to be 80, right? We're going to invest for probably 20 years for you to be 60 or 65. I could do 25 years. And if we calculate the future value, over $2 million. So if you're 40, you've got $250,000, you're not adding another dime to your savings. You'll have $2 million by the time you retire. Why is that?
Kids, right?
What's that? For you,
the 85 is for your kids.
for your kids, right? Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, not take advantage that much for them.
Well, so this represents if you're 65, right? If you're 65, you can absolutely use this for yourself.
Yeah, I was thinking about the 40 years.
Oh, for the 40, yeah. Would you?
65?
Just for fun, you want to see what that looks like?
Yeah, the cruise shipping and enjoy the world, yeah.
Right.
That matter.
Well, you got $7 million if you keep it till 80, right? And don't spend any of it till 80.
Can make 4 million? You 2 million bucks?
Oh, that's 7 million.
7 million.
Yeah, over 7.5 million.
With 80 years, I will have around $12 million.
Right.
Yeah, it's a good cash for my daughter. Yeah, it's a good way to figure this out. Yeah.
So the main idea here is by investing early, you're setting yourself up to have choices down the line. Okay, same example, if you're 40, $250,000, you don't want to save anymore. What if you want to take a step back and have a lower paying, lower stress job just to pay the bills, but you don't need any to invest? Or what if you want to stay at the same job but travel every year, right? Give yourself a break. Okay, the next tip here, life insurance can be great. I recommend having maybe term life insurance, so not whole life insurance, not universal life insurance. They can be useful, but it gets really complicated. And any difference in premium that you would have paid towards the whole life insurance, invest it, or put it towards your PYF number. Question?
Can you talk a little bit about the difference between term and whole life insurance?
Yes, so when I say term and whole life insurance, do y'all know what I'm talking about? No clue. Okay, so I just spoke Spanish to you, and okay. Term life insurance. I'm going to start with term because it's simpler. You can go to an insurance company and apply to get a policy that says, hey, if I pass away within 10, 15, 20, 30 years, my beneficiary, usually a family member, will get $500,000. We'll get $1 million. We'll get whatever dollar amount that you agree to. What's the point of that? Well, we can use myself as an example. I've got a 3-month-old daughter at home, and if I was to, get hit by a bus tomorrow and I had nothing for her, it'd be really hard for her to, grow up without an income from a parent, so on and so forth. Whereas I personally have got insurance, so if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, she all of a sudden, maybe not directly, right, through a parent or a guardian, but she would get about $1 million, okay, for her development to help support her. And so it's really good to get life insurance if you've got somebody that depends on you for income, or if you've got a partner that, maybe you want to have a mortgage paid off if you pass away, or a variety of other reasons. Okay. This is life insurance, yes. Generally speaking, term life insurance is low cost. So my personal $1 million policy, if I was to get hit by a bus tomorrow, that cost me about $42 a month. And I've had it since I was 25. It's a 30-year policy, so it'll be expired by the time I'm 55. Okay. That premium is completely based on how long you have your policy and the dollar amount that the policy pays out when you do pass, if you do pass away within that time. So I've seen premiums as low as $15 a month for smaller policies. I've seen premiums as high as hundreds a month if you've got a really high policy. There are policies out there that pay out $5 million in the event of your death. Those are going to be expensive. Okay. I'm sorry? So that's this. What I'm talking about is term life insurance. Oh, absolutely. So term life insurance is a contract between you and an insurance company that says if I pass away within a certain amount of time, my beneficiaries get a payout. And the payout is the amount that you decide.
The first one, there is no period in the first.
No, this is all the same one. This is all term. So the first one I discussed is also term. And then the other policy type is whole life insurance. Whole life is pretty much what it sounds like. It will follow you for the rest of your life. But because of that, insurance companies aren't dumb. They know that you're going to eventually die. They're not going to charge you $40 for that policy. It'll be more like $500 per month for that policy. $600, $700, $800 per month for that policy. And what I'm saying is if you have the choice between the two, now you're sitting with an insurance agent and they're telling you what a good investment whole life will be, remember they've got a different objective, right? They want to fill their pockets. I'm not saying that whole life is bad for everybody, but 9 times out of 10, you'll be better off if you take that difference in premium, so $50 a month versus $500 a month, take that $450 and just throw it into S&P 500. You'll be better off. I got 2, okay.
What happens if you live past that term?
Great question. So I'm going to answer your question with car insurance. I also pay for car insurance every month. If I never get into an accident and one day just get rid of my car, no harm, no foul, right? I walk my separate ways. I don't pay car insurance anymore. They never paid me because I never got into an accident. So same thing, life insurance, you paid all this money for 30 years. Oh, shucks, you never died. No harm, no foul. You walk away, you stop, all right? You stop paying the monthly premiums. They no longer pay you out if you die after that term.
Okay.
But by then, hopefully you've been saving and investing $250, $500 a month for the last 25, 30 years. Your net worth is $1 million, $2 million. That can get passed on to your heirs. So all these things are connected. Great question.
So,
I got here and then I got here.
So if you surpass that term limit, can you potentially have a hole after that?
Yes, many companies offer the ability, they send you letters in the mail once you get close to that maturity date of your policy. They say, hey, your policy is ending. Would you like to convert to whole life? And you can talk to a representative, and then they show you that it's going to go from $50 a month to $800 a month. But you can do it.
Can you do term and then term again, or is it just?
Yes, you can. So for that, you usually have to reapply at that new time period.
Okay.
So say you're 50. Well, if you're 50 and you apply for 30 years, chances are you're going to, higher chances of you passing between 50 and 80 than between 20 and 30, 20 and 50. So insurance companies know that what was $50 a month might now cost $200 a month. Okay, great question.
So
Question.
the moral to that is, when you buy insurance, the earlier, the younger you are, the cheaper it is.
Yes.
You don't want to get to be as old as I am trying to buy insurance.
But you sure can, and they will
Yeah.
charge you for it. All right, great questions. That was okay. Excellent. One more. I should have made this an insurance presentation.
So where to get this insurance?
Where's my policy?
No, where we can get
Where can you get insurance? Great question. So many companies out there. For term insurance, it's not so important who you go with. Most of the companies that are, there's a certain rating. You know, every one of these companies have ratings. As long as you're picking a reputable company, you're pretty much guaranteed to have that policy in force for however long that policy lasts. So I'll just name out a few companies, you know, Northwestern Mutual, Banner Life, any mutual company, so, you know, mutual bank of whatever, usually has life insurance. If you have no clue where to start, you can always start by talking to your bank, so a representative at your bank, and they can point you in the right direction. If you're buying term life insurance, it's really not so important who you choose. It's low cost, it has one simple job, you know, that's the point of it. Question?
Yeah, so just sort of to put some numbers to that, I got my first term life insurance policy 5 years ago, so I was in my 20s, you know, fairly healthy, no pre-existing conditions. It was a $100,000 policy, my beneficiary is sitting right there, and it cost me less than $13 a month. Right, you fast forward a few years later, I wanted to get more insurance on myself. I bought a home, so if something happened to me, you know, I need to make sure that at least my house can be paid for. I bought a condo. I bought a tiny little 2-bedroom condo. So I bought more insurance, but just that, you know, short-term difference. So my first policy was for 30 years, and that was less than $13 a month. My second policy is only for 20 years, and that cost me $15 a month. Right, so the younger you are and the healthier you are, the less expensive it is. It does slowly creep up on you.
Yes. Okay.
And just to check, if we don't use this insurance, we can receive like investment at the end of the payment.
Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and talk about whole life insurance. That is a feature of the whole life insurance policy. So remember, your premiums are much higher. It could be 8 or 10 times higher. Well, at the end, well, you know, that'll last you your whole life. But at any time, you can go into that whole life policy and pull money out, because it's called whole life, but it really is a hybrid between life insurance and an investment. That's what it really is. Okay. But again, I still recommend just get the term life, put the difference into investments, because if you really need the money, you could just go to your own account. You don't have to deal with the mumbo jumbo of the contract or paying fees to get access to your money. It's a lot smoother that way. Excellent questions. Any others on life insurance before I continue? Okay. Credit score and paying interest on your credit card. I think I mentioned that before. So if you've got credit cards and somebody told you, oh, keep a balance, just pay the minimum payment, it's probably the worst thing you could do. Pay it off in full every month versus making the minimum payments actually has no effect on your credit score. So you might as well pay it off every month and not pay interest on it. And then renting versus buying a house or a condo. Either can be good or bad. So, you know, we see in the headlines, house prices are at all-time highs. Man, it's really hard to buy a house these days. You know, you don't want to force buying a house if it's going to put you at the limit of your budget. Because what happens if something goes wrong? What happens if you get laid off? What happens if, right, you don't want to go into foreclosure? A whole nightmare can happen there. So renting can be just as good as buying, especially if your rent is low and you're saving and investing that difference in price and costs. Okay, and people don't really think about it, but buying a house, people talk so much about it, how it's a good investment. Home prices have not risen as fast as stock prices over the last 30 years. So take somebody who bought a house for 200 grand back in 1990, and it's 500,000 today. Sounds impressive. Well, 200,000 into the S&P 500 in 1990 would probably be closer to $3 million today. So, you know, it's not so end-all be-all buy a house, but it is nice when you can properly afford to do so. Okay. Any questions, comments, concerns, anything at all for me? Pretty much at the end here. Got a question in the back.
So I've always wanted to invest, but I felt so lost as to like where to start and how to safely invest. Because there's so many apps out there too.
There are.
So like, what do I use?
Yeah, can you share maybe 1 or 2 apps that you've seen? What have you seen so far?
I don't remember.
Don't remember, just so many of them?
Yeah, Robinhood.
Okay, so, and thank you for bringing that up. So Robinhood, well, I'll say that the prior screen, I'm going to recommend that you start with one of these top 3 companies here. So Schwab, Vanguard, Fidelity. And the reason why is they are traditional brokerages where you can make any type of account, Roth IRA, taxable brokerage. They've got a nice clean interface, a nice clean app, and it's very easy to connect your money and move money back and forth. Everything I just said is also true for Robinhood. What I don't love about Robinhood is they almost, and Robinhood's fine, but they gamify investing. So when you put money into Robinhood and buy your first stock or sell your first stock, fireworks pop up and they say, oh, congratulations, make your next trade. Investing really should be boring. The fun shouldn't happen until 20 years from now when you're looking at that compounding. Great question. Yeah, another question? Did I hear somebody?
Just we ask about like all those informations help us, but it's really hard to connect and to decide which is the best one for you.
Yeah.
Every reality here is different. Our country has one coin,
Yeah.
here it's other. Our family reality is different. Like for example, he has a daughter or not,
Mm-hmm.
and how to connect like with people like you or other kind of service to help us to decide which is better for us, like
Yeah.
to analyze our situation and to help us like for you this is the best way, for probably in the future we can change for this type of way and like that.
Yeah, excellent question. So that's actually my job now, but primarily,
Imagine that.
right, primarily with a focus on helping people take that nest egg and turn it into a monthly paycheck, right? But for you, if you need guidance, if you need help, I've got time. You can reach out to me after this. You can talk to Houston. She can get you in contact. But I would say right now in life, if you're under the age of, 40 or even 50, it's not, you don't really need a financial advisor. A financial advisor is going to be quick to try and charge you, and you just don't need to be paying any money when you're trying to build wealth. If the vast majority of people follow these simple, steps here, I know you might be in a different country, you might have different investment restrictions, but these same principles can be applied to different countries as well. You're going to be fine. You really don't need an advisor until you're ready to start taking money out. And now you have to start worrying about tax rules. And now you want to make sure you don't take out too much and have $0 left before you die. Right, that's where we come in. Yeah, great questions.
I have another observation on that. So we do have Val, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a financial wellness institute, right? So that is another one of the sessions that we're hoping to have reoccurring for you guys. So I do want Dave to come back in particular to go more in depth in these topics, but we're hoping to have other touch points, right, to go more in depth with you guys with these topics.
That's awesome. Yeah. Good question. Which is the least what? Oh, which has the least brokerage fees? All 3 of these are probably going to be identical. I say identical, but the difference is going to be so minimal that it's going to have no effect on your life. So for all of these to go and create a Roth IRA or a taxable brokerage account and start investing, there's no fees. The fees are going to come in when you actually buy these funds. They have different what we call expense ratios, and they're all under 0.05%. And what that means for you is for every $10,000 you invest, it's going to cost you $5 per year to hold it. Okay, so Fidelity might be $5 a year. This might be $4 a year. I'm not, $1 per year is not going to make or break your investing life. So these 3 for sure, because they're all low cost, they're all very straightforward, and that's what I would start with. Excellent question. Fees I will touch on your question earlier. You mentioned about the target date funds and different investment types. Once you start adding different investment types, the fees do start going up. So target date funds actually might cost 10 times as much as these here, which sounds like a lot, but $50 a year still isn't bad. It's right now, while you're building wealth, you really just want to focus on low fees and keeping it simple. Alrighty. Excellent question. Any others?
Did say you didn't have any.
Nope.
I think another thing probably to consider for young people is that we're living in a society where it's about consumerism. Okay? Every day you're being inundated with what you have to have, these anywhere you want to be. Okay? So I think the focus is really about how you see money and thereby how you're going to use it and how it's going to be able to benefit you. But we're being inundated every day with you have to have this, you have to have that. You're not this unless you have that every single solitary day. So I think we have to think about how we view money, period. You know, in order to have something to invest. If you can't.
I agree.
You can't buy Starbucks every day. You know, just take away Starbucks every day.
And we don't need to go to Starbucks now, like we can buy everything here.
Right, it's even easier to spend money.
We lost our money like $3, $5, and Amazon is coming, still coming, pets, and
yeah, well,
we're still losing money.
We're in Las Vegas, and one of the things in Las Vegas, they used to use cash in Las Vegas. A long, long, long time ago. Even the slot machines, you'd actually put coins in it. You know, and you'd hear all the coins drop out, because that was fun. Now you're not, they're using what's called validators. You put the money, literal paper money, into the machine because they don't want you conscious. They give you chips because they don't want you to realize that you're actually using money. So there's all kinds of strategies so that you don't see money as money really is. You're not really spending it. That's one of the reasons that I actually like cash because I know what I have, and when I'm done with that, that's all I have. I'm not using my debit card or my credit card because I'm aware of this is the money that I have, and I know when I'm out of it.
And I don't know if this works for some people in the past because now we are using these for everything, like our money side here.
Yeah.
But when I was young, my mom gave me 100 reais, and because I'm from Brazil, like $100. And she told me, if you have $100, like just one note, I don't know the name for the saddle, like
Dollar bill.
dollar bill, yeah. If you have 100, you have 100. If you have 2 of 50, 15, you don't have more 100 because those of 1 you will change so fast, you use so fast, you lose that so fast. With anything cheap, you imagine, oh, I can buy it. And I miss those times, like this past time with cash in your hand, because for me now it's really hard to save money because I can buy everything on my cell phone. It's really hard.
A question that we had online is, can you explain the difference between a Roth IRA and a regular IRA?
Yes. Okay, so Roth IRA versus regular or traditional IRA. With a Roth IRA, you're putting money in today or now, and that is money that has already been taxed. And the way I think about it is, in order for you to even be able to put money into a Roth IRA, it has to be considered earned income. So income from a W-2, from a job, or from 1099 self-employment work. And when you get income from W-2 or self-employment work, you've already paid taxes on those dollars. So you're putting those after-tax dollars into a Roth IRA. That Roth IRA can grow tax-free year after year, no matter how much it grows by. And by the time you retire, or by the time you're 59 and a half, or older, you can pull money out of that Roth IRA completely tax-free, regardless of how much it grew by. Another quick fact about the Roth IRA, at any time, so before the age of 59 and a half, you can take out whatever you put in. Penalty-free, no taxes, no questions asked. So if you, for example, put in $20,000 into a Roth IRA over the course of 20 years, you're 40 years old and you need to take out 10 grand, you can take that out no problem, no penalty, no taxes, because you've put in 20 grand. You only took out 10. With a traditional IRA, it's a little different. Traditional IRAs allow you to put money into retirement account, and what you put in, you get to deduct off your taxes today. So the limit on the traditional IRA is, I think, $7,000 this year. It changes every year. For the Roth IRA too, both $7,000. But if you put in $7,000, which is about $550 a month or so, in case you were wondering, you can go to your tax returns and say, hey, I contributed $7,000 into a retirement account, traditional IRA. Deduct that $7,000 off my income, and I only pay taxes on this lower portion. Now, fast forward, you retire at age 60 or whatever age you retire at, all that money in that traditional IRA is subject to taxes now. So if it grew to $1 million over time, and you've been deducting for 40 years, now you take out $20,000 from that traditional IRA in retirement, you're paying taxes on the $20,000. It's considered earned income. Okay, so whatever, and how much taxes will it be? That's a question I get frequently. Tax laws change all the time. So by the time we reach, 20, 30, 40 years from now, the tax law is probably going to be different from today. But if you're taking out $20,000 right now, it probably, depends on your total income, but it's probably around 20% taxes for most people. Can I explain the taxes on this? On these up here? Yeah. Great question. You know what? I think now's a great time to go. Okay. I'm just picking Schwab because it's the first one on that list. No affiliation to Schwab any longer. And you go to any website, it's all going to look similar. So it's just like any website. If you've got a membership with a cable company or with your phone company or with your electricity company, you go to the website and you can log into your account. So if you're brand new and you're looking to open an account, there's a big button that says open account. This is going to be the same for all of these websites, Fidelity, Vanguard. And as soon as I open an account, it asks you what you want to create. Individual brokerage, joint brokerage, Roth IRA, traditional IRA, so on and so forth. So you get to pick the type of account before you put money into it. And that's going to determine all the taxes that we talked about, whether it's going to be deferred or if you're paying it now or whatever happening.
What you just explained to us, that's a small investment once, something like that. Which one for that?
Thank you for asking. Any of them. It's your choice. So you can go in and decide to do an individual brokerage and put $5 a month into that, $10 a month into it. You can decide to have a Roth IRA and put $5 or $10 a month into it. If you're international, as you mentioned earlier, it's probably going to be a good idea to go individual brokerage to not tie yourself to any retirement rules here in the United States. But if you're going to be here in the United States, it's probably a better idea to just go Roth IRA and invest in there because it's going to be tax-free over time.
Do most index funds still have like a minimum initial investment, or are they like?
Thank you for asking. So the industry, ever since 2000, let's call it 2019, have gotten very beginner friendly. No minimums, or I guess there is a minimum. The minimum is $1 for all of those funds that I showed. Okay. If we were having the same presentation conversation 20 years ago, the minimum would probably be $500, and the fees would be higher, and it wouldn't be as user friendly. You can't just go to a website. You've got to actually go into a physical place and talk to an advisor and go through the whole field.
We need to check what our labels for the student design. So I have already leave that for you. Work so I needed to check every time. Can I do this? Yes, I do. So here in US I have no idea.
Yeah, really good question.
I'll do a quick plug for that. The Office of International Students and Scholars don't specifically handle, monies and investments, but I would recommend starting with them, see if they have anyone they would recommend that you talk to see, what your restrictions and limitations are on that. My brain just did the total pickup, but I would recommend starting.
Before starting, check what are
I would recommend it just because I don't know what the individual laws are.
even if the bank I will like confused.
Yeah.
Like, how should we do what you like? So now you talk about like checking account and saving account.
Yeah.
And I remember that the bank they told me that there are some restrictions. What are my options? And, like,
Lisa?
Yes.
Hi.
Sure. To be here.
Yeah.
Hi.
Excellent.
About time.
Do you have anyone on campus that you would recommend to talk to students, international students about banking?
So banking is a hard question, right? So when it comes to banking, it depends on the questions that you have. If you're just looking for like general information about how to set up a bank account, what am I eligible to do as an international student, as a non-resident, and especially about taxes, then I would definitely recommend talking first to your international student advisor. Because especially when it comes to investments and other types of things that can be seen as income, you may or may not be putting your immigration status in risk. Important things to keep in mind. And I think I answered a couple of these questions on the first day, but if you're international students and have any questions about finances and how that relates to taxes as a non-resident alien, a good point of contact on campus is going to be Debbie Onrath at the Non-Resident Alien Tax Office. So that's NRAT at unlv.edu. Great resource, especially come April, because international students, US taxes, it's fun.
Thank you, Talitha.
Great question. Sure.
If we still have you for time, on the previous slide, you had something about 529s.
Yeah.
We do have a few folks with kids and grandkids in here, and folks that might potentially have kids and grandkids. Can you please talk about what a 529 is and how that works?
Absolutely. Okay. So 529, quick show of hands, who has kids already?
I have a 529.
Oh, excellent. Okay, so we've got a couple in here. Okay, so with 529s, the tax, so the whole point of all these different account types, individual brokerage, joint brokerage, right, so on and so forth, 529, it's all for the tax rules. What's going to happen to the money in regards to taxes. With the 529, it is very similar to a Roth IRA, so long as it's used for education of the beneficiary. So you can put money in, it can grow tax-free, you can take it out tax-free for school. Okay. 529s are sponsored by states. They're state-sponsored accounts. All that means is when you do decide, hey, I want to open up a 529, you're going to have to do some research. What state do you want to open it up in? Nevada, right? Montana, Michigan, whatever state you're interested in. Each state has its own pros and cons for choosing their 529. The biggest reason for choosing a specific state's 529 is you don't have to pay state income tax on what you contribute into that 529. So we live in Nevada. Nevada has no state income tax. So living in Nevada, I've got a 529 that I just opened up for my daughter. I chose a different state that's not Nevada because there's no big benefit. There's no state tax for me to save out on if I had a Nevada 529.
The benefit as well is, I know my parents started when I was very young for myself. And, I mean, you can even use it for like, as long as it's, you know, for school, you can use it for like car payments or whatever it is.
Well, actually, I didn't know that.
So, yeah, if you wanted to purchase a car and say this is for example, my daughter, or, you know, she needs to commute from, you know, home to college,
Right.
whatever it is, they, you know, as long as you, you know, show proof of payment, whatever, that's just really neat.
Yeah, that is awesome. I knew you could do it for like laptops and for different, you know, materials. That's not just tuition. That's really cool. For 529s? Yeah, yeah. So man, you're really gonna want to just double check all your international renewal. Yeah. Another question in the back?
Nowadays, I see a lot of parents, instead of like being 529s, but purchasing property for their children. What would be like pros and cons of that?
Sure. So if you buy, I'm gonna give you an example. Say you buy a property for your child that they are to use down the line. It really depends on how you want to use it. You know, if you know, we can go in a lot of different ways with this, but if you know what school you want your child to go to, buy a property by that school, they can live there while they commute to and from, right? But if they're going to a different school, it's going to be hard to extract money out of that property to pay for their tuition, books, so on and so forth. That being said, you run into more tax consequences by not doing a 529. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but say you sell the property and use that money for the child, well, now you've got taxes on any gains that you had in the property. Or say you put a tenant in there and rented it out, and use the rental income for the child, well, you're paying taxes every month on the rental income. Plus you've got repairs, plus you've got regular home maintenance. So you can absolutely do anything. You can use an individual brokerage account for a child, but then it won't be theirs. It's going to be yours. It's going to fall under your tax rules that will be taxed every year. But it can be done. The whole point of the 529 is to just completely bypass taxes, and that account it belongs to the child. The adult.
Dave, I want to be respectful of your time. I think we could probably take a couple more questions. Do we have any online? Does anybody have any closing questions?
Sure.
I'm not sure if you said this already, but to access the S&P 500, it would be the individual brokerage.
Great question. So all of these all of these different types of accounts, you can invest in anything under the sun. So you can open up any one and invest in the S&P 500. But if you are planning to stay in the United States, planning to have a job, have earned income, and you're not going to be making over 150, 160,000 a year, the Roth IRA is probably going to be your best bet. Okay. If you're just unsure, just don't know where you're going to be, a little uncertainty, individual brokerage. Your best bet. Okay. Great question. Any other final questions?
Great.
All right.
Thank you, Dave. Can we get a round of applause?